Welcome to Inside Major League Pickleball, your stop for all things MLP, a special playoff edition this week. I'm Will Daughton, joined by the voice of pickleball, Dave Fleming. I'm excited, Dave. How are you feeling?
I'm thrilled. It's playoff time. Now these matches matter to see who's going to take the title. Let's get going, baby.
Dave, we're coming off the final regular season event in Miami. 6 premier teams moving on to the postseason. Let's look at the final premier level standings. We've got the New Jersey Fives in that top spot, followed by the St. Louis Shock, the Dallas Flash, DC Pickleball Team, Texas Ranchers, and the New York Hustlers. What are your thoughts on the final standings of the regular season?
You know, what was interesting for me is the 6th spot was not close. So everybody that didn't make it wasn't like within 1 point. We'll see that in the challenger side for sure when we look at that later in the show. So the fact that the Hustlers comfortably made it, we didn't know if that would happen. We thought maybe the Drive or someone else would really push in that last event. It didn't happen. So top 2 very secure, and it turned out the 6th team, the Hustlers, very secure as well.
And talking about those top 2 teams, New Jersey and St. Louis, they get byes to the semifinals. We won't see them again until Orlando. Let's start with St. Louis, Dave. What do you like most about that team?
I just love everything about it. The team chemistry is terrific. They pushed in on Kate Fahey. Has she ever rewarded the St. Louis team with that? The Shock love every bit of the team. The 2 youngsters, come on. Big H and Gabe going nuts. And then the best captain in Major League Pickleball is Anna Bright. She wills her teams to victory. She gets them to play at their absolute best, and then obviously an unbelievable player herself.
Look, not to take anything away from Anna Bright, but I got to push back a little bit. I think you got to give Zane Navratil over in New Jersey some credit. He is an amazing captain for that team. Obviously, you've got Annalie Waters leading from the front, but Zane, just a great presence, a veteran presence. He knows how to win in MLP. And then you've also got Will Howells, Mari Humberg, late round picks, playing so well throughout the whole season for New Jersey. A lot to like about that team as well. But we've got the 3 through 6 seeds, 4 teams in action this week in Dallas for the quarterfinals, and some new things happening this week at Brookhaven Country Club. Tell us what's different.
There's a lot different, and I'm excited about this. Obviously, we've got the World Series going on right now. We've got all of the nuances of that fall in here because we're playing best 2 out of 3 matches. So what does that mean? The teams are going to play each other once. They're going to play again. And then, we've got if necessary involved in our sport now because if they split those first 2, we're going to play a 3rd match to decide who moves on. So that's one new thing. The second big thing, and this is big, is the fact that the higher seeded team gets to choose everything. So no coin toss, you get to choose react to mixed, you get to set your dream breaker lineup. If we get there, you get to choose receive, which most people should choose to do. You even get to choose side if we got any wind or elements in Dallas. Now, what's interesting though, with the way the rules were set up, is that is true for the first 2 matches only. So if we go to the 3rd match, we are throwing that coin in the air. So if you split and you are not the higher seeded team, you could still maybe grab that all-important react to mixed and get the match set up just the way you want. The final difference will be if somebody runs out to a 3-0 lead, we have no reason to play that 4th or 2nd mixed match because it's over.
Wow, that is it's a lot to keep track of, but I think what you said just about making those decisions. It makes now we're in the postseason, but those regular season matches, yes, every point truly counts, and now you're really seeing that come to fruition here in the postseason as well. Let's go on to our first premier level quarterfinals. The Dallas Flash taking on the New York Hustlers, the 3 seed versus the 6 seed. Let's look at the rosters. Dallas, obviously, the siblings, J.W. Johnson and Georgia Johnson, with Hurricane Tyra Black and Augie Ga. And up north in New York, Jack Sock, first round pick with Jackie Kawamoto, Leah Jansen, and C.J. Klinger. Who's your player to watch in this matchup, Dave?
Well, there's a couple of things going on here. First of all, the Dallas Flash got to choose who they wanted to play of the 5 or 6 seeds. So they chose New York. So number 1, okay, New York, they wanted you. Bulletin board material. Okay, so I want to see what the fellas are going to do here. So Jack Sock, obviously, so much fanfare. People love watching him play. It's showtime. Can he will his team forward? Because what does he have? He's played a ton of this type of event on the tennis side, Laver Cup, etc. So he knows what it takes to win in this setting. Can he do it on the 20x44? And then the guy that put a 12 on his back, J.W. Johnson, did not like the fact that he lasted till the 12th pick. So guess what? Get out your magic wands, because the Flick Wizard could be the difference in this one. He can take over a match. He will be the difference, especially in mixed. If he and Georgia can get going, they won't be beat.
And talking about the fellas, Dave, the last time these teams have played twice this regular season, it's tied 1-1. Dallas swept it 4-0 in Atlanta, and then in DC, New York got some revenge. And Jack Sock and CJ Klinger actually beat J-Dub and Augie in that men's doubles match in DC. But one thing to note, after Atlanta, New York switched up their mixed doubles pairings. They were having Jack Sock play with Jackie Kawamoto and Leah Jansen playing with CJ Klinger. Now they have CJ playing with Jackie and Jack playing with Leah. So that helped them get the win in New York. And so obviously those teams have had a lot more time to play together throughout all of these events. So look out for mixed doubles as being, another X factor in this matchup, and really seeing how they go against J-Dub in Georgia, and then when Augie plays with Tyra.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting because, as we mentioned, Dallas got to choose, but they are choosing a team that they lost to the last time, as you mentioned. So how is this all going to work out? Because they had to decide, do we want to have an all-Texas battle and choose the Texas Ranchers? That was their choice that they had to make, either the 5 or the 6. So they went with a team that beat them 3-1, not even a dream breaker. So we'll keep an eye on that.
And you mentioned that. That's actually not the first time we're going to talk about that same dynamic. Yeah. We'll get to that in a few minutes. Moving on to the second premier level matchup, we've got the DC Pickleball team taking on the Texas Ranchers. For DC, obviously, James Ignatowicz, Rachel Rohrbacher, Deckel Barr, and Vivian Glossman, who they traded for earlier in the season. And Texas, of course, Christian Alshon, Etta Wright, Tina Pisnik, and Quang Duong, who they picked up off of waivers after he was amazing in DC, subbing in for Pablo Tejas at the time. Who are we watching out for in that matchup?
I hope we're not watching out for the doctors, because there are a lot of injuries coming into this with both sides. So we had Etta Wright have some challenges throughout the last couple weeks. Is she going to be healthy? Because she and Tina Pisnik are absolutely fantastic for the Ranchers. They want to have those ladies because they love to they think, okay, we're good. We're going to have that women's match in our pocket. So I'm going to keep an eye on that. Quang has been having a little bit of an ankle challenge, but he won a Carvana PPA Tour singles, so I think he's through that. Alshon has been struggling with injuries as well. So I've talked to Ryan a lot about that, Ryan DeWidgeon, their coach and GM, and he just wants a healthy team out there because they really think they deserve to be at the top. Well, guess what? You got in, you didn't get the bye, but now you have a chance to prove it. On the other side, Jimmy Ignatowicz had to scratch from the last couple of matches in Miami. I think it was more precautionary. I would expect him to play here. But those two big dudes just don't win. What is going on? Deckel and James are a disaster for whatever reason. They can't win. It feels like a team that would dominate out there, and it hasn't happened. And you can switch the mixed pairings as you talked about, but when you look around, we only got two dudes. They have to play together, and they got to get it figured out.
And you talked about the gender doubles, and I want to switch to the mixed doubles for DC because in both matchups, the series is tied 1-1 throughout the season, but in both matchups, the mixed doubles pairings for DC have won. They've beaten both of Texas's mixed doubles pairings. So that puts a lot of pressure then on Texas's gender doubles pairings, especially on Etta Wright, Tina Pisnik, and Christian Alshon and Quang Duong to really get out to a 2-0 lead, or at the very, very least a 1-1 going into that mixed doubles. So, I know you might be a little bit worried about men's doubles for DC, but I think mixed doubles has really been the name of the game so far for them. And I think, look, Deckel and James, they're both great players in their own right. I know they made the quarters in Atlanta of the PPA. That was a huge draw. I think they're going to be fine. I think they're going to be locked in for, the playoffs. And I don't know, just really be on the lookout for mixed doubles in that specific matchup. Now we're switching gears here, Dave. We just got the premier level matchups. Let's go over to Challenger, take a look at the Challenger standings, the final standings after Miami. And man, there's a lot to talk about. Let's start with Frisco, making it by the skin of their teeth, 1 point ahead of Bay Area and Brooklyn. What a story that was.
Unbelievable. I called one of their matches down in Miami, and that was one of the early ones when they had to kind of get this thing going. But they had to win everything and then have a series for the other teams of unfortunate events to happen. And when you have Eva Radzikowska on your team, this is someone who has won Major League Pickleball Challenger titles. She was money. She doesn't miss, which is huge in Challenger. To just keep making balls is important because the other teams get nervous, it gets tight, and when both teams are in the 20s, you can count on her, and she just willed her team through. And what's going on? Bay Area and Brooklyn, all the moves, and you are watching.
And, you know, for Bay Area, you think about they weren't even competing in Miami. So I initially thought, and they probably thought this too, they didn't really have a shot ending with 32 points.
Right.
Then you had all those other teams kind of collapse towards the end. So you're like, oh no, maybe we have a shot. Then it comes down to that final match for Frisco to knock you out of the playoffs. A tough break for them. And a tough break for Brooklyn too. They get Pablo, they get Andrea, but they really just didn't have time to gel, with their partners. It's a tough end of the season for Brooklyn, especially after winning the midseason tournament, which every team was in attendance there.
They looked unbelievable there. We were wondering, Pablo, anyone that goes from Premier to Challenger always wonder, are they going to be into this or not? Well, he was way into it. He was the best player on the court by far. And then it just didn't happen. He wasn't able to take over. I think he ended up with like a 500 record in Challenger, and that's not what they traded for those results, but that's what happened. So they're watching, and the Pandas, look out, because they are on fire coming into this.
So we focus on kind of the middle of the pack for Challenger standings. Let's go to the top and look at the two teams getting byes to the semifinals, Chicago Slice and the SoCal Hard Eights. Dave, I know you have a lot to say about SoCal and their experience to finish in that number 2 spot.
They were at home because they played a ton of their matches beforehand. So they did not even go to Miami, and yet they're watching this unfold, and they're like, I don't know if we can. And then going into Sunday, Miami just needed to win one of 2 matches, and even in a dream breaker would have be fine because they had tiebreakers, and they lost twice. And the Florida Smash, who had struggled all weekend, came through for the SoCal Hard Eights. And this is after the Hard Eights had some hard luck with Arina Terashenko not being able to play in Vegas. So all of a sudden, they're at home. And why was this big? Yes, they get to bye to the semis, but they get thrown forward into Premier next year. So that was massive. That it wasn't just this, which is very important for winning this year. It's you're in Premier next year. That's what all the Challenger teams were playing for. So wild ride for them. They're excited, and they're going to be tough to beat. Anytime you've got Purple Jesus on your side, look out.
I love that nickname. Purple Jesus, best nickname perhaps in all of pickleball, maybe. But can't forget about Chicago.
No.
They make me look really smart.
Yes, they
and
do.
I have to say thank you to the Chicago Slice.
Yes, they did.
I think it was after Kansas City. They were not looking too great. Add Megan Fudge, obviously a huge influence on that team. But Jack Monroe, Brendan Long, Allison Harris, man, they have just really turned it on towards the end of the season. They finish in the top spot. Of course, they earned that promotion to Premier as well. Talk about a team that's hard to beat. I mean, man, I don't see a weak spot for that team, so I'm excited to see them in Orlando. We'll see both teams in Orlando. All right, Dave, let's look at the quarterfinal format for the playoffs for Challenger this weekend.
Yeah, so it's the same as what I discussed with Premier. You get to do everything if you're the higher seed, and if you finish third, again, you got to choose your opponent, and Miami chose Frisco. Wow.
We talked about Frisco, and you talked about Miami. Miami choosing to play Frisco even though they just lost. Talk about that.
Yeah, because you have the Night Owls sitting there as your other choice. So they could have chosen Las Vegas or the Pandas, and the Pandas just beat them in a match both sides really wanted. So, okay, you looked at Rafa and Blaine maybe having some challenges, and we'll talk about that in the Owls, and they were like, no, we want to go back at it. So if it was that, and I was not in the locker room discussing this with them, but if it was literally No, we didn't play the way we wanted to. Yeah, we dropped that match. We want Panda revenge. So they're going to go all kung fu on the Pandas, they think. However, momentum is real and confidence is real. And when you're playing on that court in rally scoring and it's in the 20s, and you can remember just last weekend, it was similar and we got it done, that's big for the Pandas. So it's an interesting choice. I like it from a storyline and what we get to discuss, but was it the right choice? Only the play will discover whether that's true or not.
And I think it's really interesting, this is a chance. Look, Miami obviously frustrated at missing out on that automatic promotion. So it's going to be interesting to see if they're able to kind of channel that frustration into something that's positive, right? A lot of teams, you talk about momentum for Frisco. You can't let the negatives follow you onto the court. And pickleball already such a momentum sport. Yeah. And so really interesting to see how they are mentally, if they come out especially fired up this weekend in Dallas. But another thing, we talked about the series, 2 out of 3. We've seen Miami mix up its mixed doubles pairings at certain points, not very frequently, but at certain points throughout this season. You'll usually have Noe Cliff playing with Bobby Oshiro and Millie Rand playing with Eric Onsens. But when they played Frisco in Virginia, which they won 4-0, they had Noe playing with Millie and Eric playing with Bobby. And so, let's say they go out and they lose this first match against Frisco, that could be something to look for if they switch up those mixed doubles pairings, because Miami did have a 2-1 advantage over Frisco in the regular season.
Yeah, I think that's going to be interesting across all of these matches, not just the quarters, but the semis and the finals as well, is do desperate times call for desperate measures, meaning, man, our mixed was a disaster. That is obviously the one place where you can flip it. And I really want to see if Bobby and Millie, who are longer in the sport, can help Noe and Eric through this. Not that they need help with their game, but just pickleball, some chestnut checkers part of this that I think Bobby and Millie can certainly help in that spot. So this is going to be fascinating because I think they might trick it up if they don't win the first time. And that is a move, obviously, all the coaches and general managers can make if they want to in between those first and second matches.
Let's go ahead and move on to our second Challenger quarterfinal. We've got the Atlanta Bouncers taking on the Las Vegas Night Owls. We talked about them a little bit. Who are your players to watch here?
Jaume. I mean, I love the guy's energy. He was built for Major League Pickleball. He's absolutely a premier player. He's playing in Challenger. That's the way it worked out. And he has done it with a smile on his face. They were a disaster in Dream Breakers, surprisingly, but then they got better towards the end and it helped them secure that 4th spot. Why was that 4th spot important? Because the team with the higher seed, as I mentioned before, gets to pick everything. So they're going to get the mixed matchup they want. They're going to get to pick receive. They're going to get their singles matchups that they want if they have to. And then you've got a crazy stat on the mixed with my boy Jaume.
Yeah, I mean, mixed doubles, Jaume and Susanna Barr are 11-0.
That's unbelievable.
They cannot be beat. I promise I'm literally
there it is,
11-0. And we got to give credit to Todd Fote and Emily Cederquist as well. I believe they're 7-4 together. So this mixed doubles, even if they don't necessarily win a ton of the gender doubles matches, they can always rely on mixed. And that's so nice to be able to have late in those matches, especially when you've got this 2 out of 3 series coming up.
For sure. And then on the other side, I talked about Deckel and James needing to get going. Well, Rafa and Blaine Hovenier need to get going too, because that was ugly a lot of the time. They just haven't been able to find the chemistry, and I think that's important. I think Blaine can rely on the fact that he got to play a bunch of premier matches earlier in the year. He jumped in with the LA Mad Drops. That's invaluable experience now to be going into the playoffs. Rafa has done very well in Major League Pickleball in his career, so he will be bringing it. It just needs to be that positive Rafa energy because the ladies for the Night Owls are very good.
And you talk about kind of the recency, right, with both of these teams. Las Vegas won the first 2 times they played against Atlanta, both in a Dream Breaker. But again, the teams had not made those roster changes. You still had Scarpa and Alhuni on Las Vegas. You still had Jeannie Irakian and Angie Walker on Atlanta. But then when they played in Virginia Beach in the first event since teams made those transactions, Atlanta won 3-1, anchored by 2 mixed doubles wins. So you talk about Bland and Rafa, if they can maybe win that mixed doubles match, we could very well be going to another Dream Breaker as well.
Yeah, and I think they'd like that. Hovenier's very good at singles, so they'd be out there. Rafa versus Jaume, I am ready for that. So please, let's get at least one of those. If we're playing potentially 3 times, let's have that. And then Zoe is the magic here. She has played terrific on the Carvana PPA Tour side for her Night Owls, and she's the best woman right now for me in all of Challenger. She is playing terrific. I want to see if she can just say, listen up, team. She doesn't have that outward personality where she's going to be running around screaming and yelling, but her play speaks louder than any of that. I love what Zoe's doing.
All right, Dave, let's take a look at the slate, the schedule for all the matches this weekend. We're going to start on Friday with the Challenger quarterfinals. The first 2 matches of each quarterfinal series will be played on Friday, then moving on to Saturday. If we need it, we're going to have Challenger Game 3s Saturday morning, and then moving on to Premier. The first Premier quarterfinal at 2 p.m. on Saturday, followed by the second quarterfinal match, and then Sunday. Game 2 for everything, and Game 3 again if needed. A full weekend of Major League Pickleball. Stakes have not been higher yet this season, trying to make it to Orlando.
That's exactly right. 1 court, too, Will. It's all on center. It's going to be great. I look forward to calling this. We got ESPN2 at 4 o'clock on Sunday for the premier quarterfinal match 2 between Dallas and New York. So that's going to be very spicy. So all the pickle you ever needed. Folks, get all that Halloween candy. You're going to be all those snacks around your TV, and then it is on.
Dave, you talked about ESPN2, but where else can people catch the action this Halloween weekend?
Wow, okay. Boo. Tricks and treats everywhere here on the desk. Yeah, I love Halloween, so all good. Pickleball TV, of course, is where you get all of your pickle action, and I want people revved up. And teaser, there's a brand new Pickleball TV app about to launch. Look for that.
God, that's going to be so cool. Yes. Having all of it on your phone.
On your phone, ready to go.
Oh my
Let's
gosh.
Go.
This weekend's winners, we talked about Premier Promotion, but they're actually moving on to the semifinals in Orlando, November 22nd through the 24th. That's at the USTA National Campus, Dave. A beautiful venue for the final Major League Pickleball event of the year.
Yeah, I love that spot in Lake Nona, just outside of Orlando, and all of the tension of Orlando is going to be ratcheted up because that's where we will do it. So it's not just quarterfinals, then semifinals somewhere, and then finals somewhere else. It's semifinals and finals. We are crowning champions in Mickey's backyard.
And we're going to be crowning quarterfinal victors this weekend in Dallas. Cannot wait for all this weekend's action. That's going to do it for this edition, this playoff edition of Inside Major League Pickleball. For Dave Fleming, I'm Will Daughton. Thanks so much for joining us. Don't miss this weekend's action.
Peace.